What is up, y'all? Jasmine, disappointment. Disappointment. Brittany, I'm about to get in that ass. I'm telling y'all now, I'm about to get in her ass because the audacity of you. The audacity of you. And Michelle and Jesse, toxic. But I was on Michelle's side this episode because Jesse, like, what? What? But if you're new here, hit subscribe. Do that right now. It's free of charge. You're going to help me out so much. Also, thumbs up the video, y'all. Thumbs up the video and get in the comments. I want to hear what y'all think. This episode was probably the most crazy episode so far this season. We got a lot going on, and I'm not going to waste too much time because I want to get into it. I got some thoughts. Let's go. So we get to everybody pretty much waking up the next day. We got Luke and Kristen. They're in the kitchen cleaning. Jesse comes down talking about how he's cleaned the entire house and it already looks like shit. But he's pretty much telling them, like, pretty much stating that he's saying this in his confessionals, that his intentions coming to Santa Barbara with him and Michelle was to kind of like leave the bullshit at the door and try and coexist. But she's been cold this entire time and he was triggered. But he then tells them that he wanted to leave, but decided that he's going to stay. And he figured it out. But he ends up telling them, too, that he's got some chefs coming over later on tonight to cook dinner for the group. We get a scene in Nia talking to Michelle. And she's pretty much asking her about how last night was. Michelle says, like, I'm not going to engage with him because I know he's doing all this stuff because he knows that it will bother me. And she says, I'm trying to move on and be happy. And he's trying to make sure that I'm not doing that. And then she also then says that she wasn't going to say anything nice about him because when he threw that ball, the objective of throwing that ball was to get somebody to say something nice. And she was not going to do that. She said, I'm not going to do that because he just called me an escort. I mean, I'm not a fan of Michelle. I'm not a fan of what she did. But she's valid. Like, you call me shit that I'm not going to say nothing nice about you either. Especially calling her an escort, the mother of your child, that's crazy. Especially if it's not true. It's like you're literally fucking with your daughter's mother's reputation. Granted, all the things she did to you, she fucked up for it. But like, come on. But Brittany and Zack, they're laying in bed. Brittany is sitting there letting him know that Jax had been texting her and he's seemingly understanding what's going on now and why he's there at the rehab facility. She says that he had told her that they had diagnosed him with being bipolar instead of depressed. Zack's like, if they really did do that, then he needs to go get medicated. But Brittany is saying that she's happy that he's in there getting help, but it's a mindfuck because he's messing with her emotions and it's hard on her. I can't wait to light into her ass later on. I can't wait because the audacity of you. Boy, I can't wait to get to it. But she ends up saying as long as he's not rage texting her, that's a positive. Okay, I'm sure. But Zack ends up saying in his confessional after telling her that she needs space from Jax, pretty much saying like you need to leave him where he at. He says like Brittany's essentially been trauma trained by by Jax, and he's basically gotten her emotionally abused. And Zack is trying to make sure that they no longer get back together. And it's like, yeah, Jax definitely has her emotionally abused, but Brittany don't love herself, which is funny why she's doing what she. I can't wait. But he ends up saying like, let's just have fun today. She agrees to do it. But we get everybody at the group. They're heading off to go wine tasting. Michelle ends up saying in her confessionals that Jesse's doing all this wine tasting stuff to show off about the stuff that he knows about wine and show about how much he can drink. But they all get on the buses or whatever. Jesse's in there acting a fool, twerking on Jason essentially. And like just, you can tell Jason was uncomfortable. And he was aggravated because Jesse was doing too much. But while they're on the bus, they ended up pulling over because something had happened with the bus. Nia had said that she had saw smoke coming from the car blowing by the windows. But Luke gets off to help the driver. Jesse does as well. And Jesse's standing outside. They're on like a highway. I don't want to call it a highway, but it's like a freeway. But he's down there playing around, like trying to hitch rides and whatever. And they sitting there concerned because of the way he was acting on the bus. And then you out here playing on the side of the road where somebody could end up hitting your ass. But Luke ends up getting back on the bus and telling them that they're going to turn around because that bus is not going to make it up their hill. So they head back and they're trying to get Ubers and whatnot. And Mia's on the phone. She gets on the phone and she's telling Danny something about what they're doing or whatever. And apparently he getting slick mouth for her. And she over there checking it. She checking it. And everybody's like, ooh. I'm going to get into that too later on. But they get to the gas station and they get into these SUVs to go to the winery. So they ended up getting to the winery. They get to their handlers, which is this couple that I'm assuming owns this winery. But they sit them down or whatever and tell them we're going to walk y'all through the wines, do the wine tasting as normal. They start tasting the wines. They're trying to swirl it and whatnot. Zach had me hollering because Zach said, fuck the swirling. I'm about to drink my wine. That would be me. But Zach and Jesse, they ended up switching seats because Zach did not want to sit in the sun because he don't like sitting in the sun. Jason ends up telling Jesse that he's sweet for doing that. And Janet's like, well, yeah, he's not a complete asshole, I guess. But Danny, he arrives. And he ends up saying that he had an early call time for that voiceover job that he had. And he said he was sober the entire day. Everybody else been here getting drunk. And now he got to catch up. You don't have to catch up. That's the thing. You don't need to catch up. But okay. But they end up bringing out him his wine. He's sitting there showing off about how he knows how to do the pour and whatnot. And after 10 minutes, he's tipsy. Look like he's getting drunker and drunker. And he said that he's been drinking all the wine. And Nia ends up saying, yeah, you're caught up at this point. But Jason ends up telling him that he needs to catch up. No, he don't. Danny says, I know I do. No, you don't. But Jasmine, she's not feeling it because of how Danny has acted in the past when he's sober or when he's drunk. And we didn't get a scene of Jasmine and Melissa talking about how they met each other. Jasmine essentially seemingly was the aggressor in the pursuit. And Melissa was trying to play it coy. They've been together for 4 years. And Jasmine ends up saying that she's never had somebody that supports her like that. So good for them. But Janet, she ends up joking with Zach about how when they weren't good, when people would ask, does he have a wig on his hair, the toupee? She told him, yeah. And Zach is happy that they're actually joking about it now. He feels like that's a sign that they're going towards a good direction with their friendship again. Luke, he ends up asking Jesse if he's in a happy place being at the winery. And Jesse ends up saying, like, every time I'm at the winery, I'm always in a good place. I'm always happy. But Michelle, she ends up getting a call from, I'm assuming was the nanny. And it's Isabella on the phone talking to her. And Jesse ends up coming over there asking her if she wants to talk. And Michelle goes over there and sits down. But in her confessional, she's saying she's so disgusted with him, and it'll take a while for her to forgive him. And the least that he can do right now is apologize for calling her an escort. She's got a valid point there. But the group, they're happy that they're going to talk, but they're also concerned about the state of their minds, where they are with each other, aka this conversation could go left, and it did. But we're about to get to it. But Jesse ends up saying like, they both started off asking if they're okay or whatever. And she's like, I'm fine. But he ends up asking Michelle if she's happy. Well, no, Jesse ends up saying that he had thought it was a joke to wave the white flag when they arrived and they needed to have a serious conversation. And he ends up asking Michelle if she's happy. She says, I am besides you. And she said, if you weren't in the picture, I'd be very happy. Like, damn. But he ends up saying, if you were happy, you'd be happy with me in my relationship. And she ends up saying, are you serious? Go be happy. Like, I'm not happy with who you're with, but go be happy. And I mean, she got a reason. Like, if you want to keep it real, if the woman or the man that you're with is not necessarily somebody that the mother or the father of your child is with, I mean, I feel like they're valid in those opinions. I do. But she ends up saying that, and Michelle ends up saying that instead of apologizing, Jesse decides to make everything about himself because he's selfish to his core, essentially. Like, that's just who he is. And she ends up saying, I'll never be okay with somebody who threatens me. I don't blame her. I wouldn't be either. But the group is overhearing them talking and whatever. And Michelle ends up saying the only thing that she had told him to do was live his life. And she says he cuts her off. Well, no, she didn't. He ended up cutting her off as she was talking, and she starts yelling at him to let her speak. And the group is looking like, uh-oh, because she getting louder at this point, and you can tell it's getting more hostile. But she ends up saying that she had thought that he was coming to apologize, and he said to who? I said, damn, here we go. But she says, look at you, you're a disaster. And he says, well, look at you, you're a hooker, and that's fine. I said, this is about to go left. And she got up and she said, I'm not doing this. The group ends up asking what's happening. She says, I'm not doing this. She getting more and more frustrated. Rightfully so, though. But she ends up repeating that again. They're trying to scream to her to calm down, essentially. And she turns around and starts yelling at him, saying that he can't do that. I'm the mother of your fucking child. Like, you're a fucking loser. You the one that's spending all our money. I'm like, uh-oh. And he says, speaking of spending money, let me just pull this up real quick. She said, pull it up then. Pull it up. So while he's doing that, I lost my damn spot in my notes. But the girls, they come over to try and grab her to calm her down. And she's taking breaths or whatever. And Luke comes over to him asking Jesse, like, what's going on? What happened? He says, I think it's going well. I said, you are a trip, bro. Like, he is a trip. Luke says, you think it's going well after what's been going? Come on. And Michelle says, let me get this straight. Let me make this straight real quick. Our friend, who was also our client, sent us some money for Isabella's birthday, and they also sent us a wedding gift. They sent it to you. I know that people have been depositing money in your account. I have proof. She pulls her phone out. She then asked him, which was a checkmate moment, why is a gay guy sending you money? I said, oh, why is he? Because it's like, okay, so who's the escort for real now? Because, I mean, that she threw the ball back in his court. And he ends up saying, so apparently gay guy sending me money is a bad thing for Michelle. I don't think it is. She just asking a question. Like, you want to call me an escort if a gay dude is sending you money? What are you doing to him? What are you doing for him? Are you doing something for... She throwing it back in his court. It's a fair question. But Jesse ends up saying apparently that... He ended up saying that. But Brittany ends up saying it's the fact that you doubled down on calling her a hooker. That's the problem. You need to apologize. Like, because you know it's a lie. And Jesse ends up saying, are you inserting yourself, Brittany? And I'm like... She says yes because that's my friend. And he says, of course. I mean, like, of course that's a lie. And I'm like, oh, Jesse, you ain't shit. Because why are you lying? Why are you lying? Why are you lying about the mother of your child being an escort and doing it on TV? Like, you're damaging. Come on. Come on. But Brittany ends up saying, thank you. That's all. She turns Michelle around and the girls start walking back to the table. And Jesse ends up saying in his confessionals that he doesn't believe the rumor. So why would you bring it to TV? And well, I don't want to say he brought it to TV because he didn't. Luke brought it. Danny brought it to TV telling Luke. But regardless, you're still spreading lies, which could then get brought to TV because you're telling people that are on the show with you. Which, as we see, it got brought to TV. The whole thing could have been prevented if he would have kept his mouth shut. Why are you spreading rumors that you don't know to be true about the mother of your child? But he says he regrets sending it to the boys' chat. I bet you do. And he says, like, I never said it was true, but you was sitting here going around here insinuating it. He says it's not slander because I never said it was true, but you're still out here insinuating it on TV. You're insinuating that it is true. You didn't say, yes, this is true, but you basically are acting as if it is. But Nia's over there telling Michelle to not give him her energy and whatever, but they head out to go back home. So they get back to the house. Everybody's in there hungry. The chef's in there cooking. Kristen ends up saying, like, Jesse's complicated because he does this shit, but he is sitting here getting us a chef to cook. But Janet, she goes into the pantry and Danny comes in there as well. And Janet ends up saying that he had followed her in there and hunched over and started taking shots of tequila. And she's wondering why he's sitting here hiding it. Michelle ends up saying it's exhausting, the roller coaster that Jesse is, and he does something shitty to her and then wants to go talk privately. So she goes upstairs to his room. He's in there and he's like, do you want to go outside and have a private conversation? She agrees to do it. They go stand outside on the balcony. Here's where it gets messy and crazy, toxic. He ends up saying, so you're going around telling people how happy you are. He's still on this happy shit. And she says, I am. And he says, so why can't you be happy for me? She says, why are you so obsessed with this girl? We have a child. And he says, because I'm in love with her. Okay. But Michelle ends up saying, like, essentially, she feels that her moving on was a shock to him and he wants her to acknowledge his happiness so that he can believe it when he knows for a fact that he's not happy. Jesse's not happy. We all see that he's not happy. Like, she's not lying. That is a decoy, but she ain't happy either, though. Truth be told, both of them are not happy. Like, let's just keep it real. Maybe they both not happy. They both not happy. But Michelle, and I don't want to say she's not happy with the guy that she's with, because I'm pretty sure she's definitely happy with being with him, but she's, at the core, she's still not happy. I don't want to say with herself, just with the situation. I guarantee you, I don't think she regrets Isabella, but if Isabella had a different dad, I bet you money she would be happy. I bet you she would, but she knows that she got to deal with Jesse forever. And Jesse's just not happy because Jesse got a lot of personal shit going on. And then what she did was fucked up to him. Even though he's a mess, everything she did do was fucked up. But he's fucked up too, though. They both fucked up. They're both toxic. But Michelle ends up saying, too, all she cares about is Isabella. And she's been saying that Isabella has been saying to her that she has a second mom, which is hurtful to her. And she says it's not fair because old girl is going to be one of many women that you're dealing with. And it's not fair to Isabella because it's going to affect her because she thinks she got a second mommy. And then she's going to end up having 4 and 5 different other women that might end up coming in her life for a period of time. And she might end up thinking the same thing, which Michelle's not wrong. I fully agree with her. And he ends up saying, who gives a shit? I said, who gives a shit? Are you serious? I said, are you serious? You was the same one that was rightfully, you was upset with, what's her, Aaron? Is that Michelle's boyfriend? When he was sitting there trying to give you pointers on what to do in your relationship with your parenting, which it was right to not be like, no, who the fuck are you to tell me what to do with my child? But you had all that energy, but now you saying who gives a shit? What? Jesse, please. But she ends up saying, don't involve my daughter in your relationships, which I agree with her on. He says, it's my daughter. And she says, no, it's our daughter, which is true. Like, even though she's saying the same thing to him, even though she's saying that to him, I feel like she should also do the same as well. But the point is valid. Like, stop introducing somebody that you don't even know for. I feel like parents should not introduce their significant other to their child unless it is serious. When I say serious, a couple years in. 5 months introduced, that's crazy. That's crazy. That is crazy. But Zack, Jasmine, Luke, and Melissa, they're downstairs talking about them. And I'm assuming they can hear them a little bit. But Jasmine says she thinks that Jesse wants Michelle, still wants Michelle. And Zack says it's kind of like Jax syndrome. But Jesse back upstairs is telling her to be happy for him and says that you... And she's like, I can't be happy for you when you called me a fucking escort. And I'm like, exactly. But Jesse ends up saying that his girlfriend has been spending 5 days a week with his dog. I said, what? Spending 5 days a week with your daughter. And that's what he told Michelle. He's doing this shit to gaslight her. Because I'd be pissed too. And Michelle was pissed. She said she shouldn't be. And she said, y'all literally just started dating 5 months. It's disrespectful. He starts gaslighting her and says, well, 5 months is disrespectful. What about 2 years? I said, I'm like, it's petty. But I mean, checkmate. But she ends up saying, I already told you the truth. Like, what do you want from me? I don't know what more you want from me. And Jesse says, I think that you're a liar. And I think that you're a cheater. She says, believe it then. And Jesse ends up saying, like, in his confessionals, that Michelle's trying to make him out to be the bad guy when she just wants to deflect from the truth of the matter is that she cheated on him and she gave up on their marriage. That is true. Like, I feel like 2 things can be true. Both people, I feel like both of them are the villain. There's no hero in this relationship. But Michelle then admits that she did admit to kissing somebody. And she then tells him that he's a piece of shit. And he ends up saying, you're the only lying, cheating whore that I know. I said, oh my gosh. Why would you say that? Why would you say that? Even though everything she did, cheating whore, that's crazy. But she ends up saying, fuck you. She said, I came up here to check on your well-being. And look at you. Look at you. You look perfectly fine to me. I made a mistake in thinking about coming up here to help you. And she ends up chucking a drink in his face. I said, oh, shit. And she ends up saying, so what do I have to do to make you stop? She's sitting there yelling at him at this point as she's getting ready to go downstairs. She's like, do you want me to scream it to everybody? And he says, yes. She starts screaming. He spent all our money. He don't hug and kiss me. Everybody's sitting there listening like, what the fuck? Jasmine said toxic. I said exactly. And they all sitting down there quiet or whatever. And Jasmine says, like, when you go that low, that's when you release everything that you've been trying to suppress. And she put that shit out there. And Nia goes to check in on Michelle. And she's like, yeah, Michelle's just saying, like, I just don't know why I even tried to go up there and be nice to him. But Michelle ends up saying, too, she's done. She's going to cut him out of her life. The only time she's going to have interactions with him is picking up Isabella and dropping her off. That's the way it should be. But Jesse, Luke, and Jason, they're over there watching the sunset. And they're asking where Danny is, who's in there napping. Nia goes in there to check on him and asks if he's coming for dinner. He's sitting in there snoring. He's deep in his sleep. So we get to dinner. This is where Jasmine started to disappoint me. And this is where Brittany started to piss me all the way off. But they leave a seat for Danny just in case he comes down. He doesn't. But Nia ends up saying he might pop out, but he worked, he drove, he's tired, essentially. Jasmine ends up mentioning how Janet, she says it in her confessionals, how Janet had talked to her about the whole him drinking in the pantry. And she's like, it made Janet uncomfortable because we all know how Danny gets when he's drunk. We'll get to it. I was about to say something, but we'll get to it. But Jasmine ends up saying about the Halloween stuff that happened at Jax's bar when he had grabbed her thigh, told her to go get him a drink, telling him, saying go get daddy a drink or whatever, and end up kissing, or not kissing, grabbing Melissa's ass and whatever. Valid reasoning. Don't get me wrong. Jasmine's concern is valid. But my thing is, he's not at the table. He's over there. He's in the room sleep. I'll get to it. But she says that, and he did apologize, but knowing that he's sneaking shots or whatever, that's got her on the edge of what he could do next. So they're cheersing the friendship or whatever and being kind to one another. Crazy that they did that, considering what's about to happen. But the chef comes out bringing them their drink, their food and stuff and whatever. So Brittany is getting these texts from I cannot get my words out today. Getting a text from Jax, and Janet and Zack are trying to confiscate the text. Give me the phone. That's basically what they're trying to do. And Nia ends up saying essentially it's manipulation, which it is. But Brittany ends up saying that she don't know why she puts Jax before herself, and she's trying to help herself find love again. And I'm like, love yourself first. That's what you need to do. You need to work on that. You should have been working on that 10, 12 years ago when you first met him. But the chef brings out the second course. Jason ends up asking Nia if they should go get Danny. And she's like, I already tried doing that. He's sleep deprived. He needs to catch up on his sleep. Jasmine's over there telling her side of the table that they all fake as fuck with this bullshit. And we'll get to it. Kristen ends up telling them that she'd love to have a fun, like, little conversational game, pretty much talking about who's your hall pass. So they start going around doing their hall passes. It gets to Nia, and she's like, I don't have a hall pass. Like, because we're friends with all these celebrities or whatever, we live in LA. Brittany's like, we all live here. We're all going to say what our hall pass is. If she don't want to say it, she don't got to say it. Like, Brittany's a weirdo. Brittany is a weirdo. I'm going to get to her. But Nia says she don't have one. Jasmine ends up saying, well, we talked about Jamie Frazier, and they show a flashback of Danny talking about it. But Nia eventually cops to it and says, yes, that was her hall pass. But Nia ends up getting up because I could tell she was already uncomfortable. She gets up to go turn on the sauna for 5 minutes. And Zack tells her, if you end up there in the bed with Danny, I'm going to go drag you out of it. But Michelle goes with Nia. And Jasmine is now sitting at the table. Talking about he drove all the way up here just to sleep. Just say he had too much to drink at the winery and had to go to sleep. Jasmine, why the fuck does that matter to you? He's not down here. If he's drunk, as long as he's upstairs in the room with the door shut, you ain't got to worry about him coming over here being inappropriate. So why the fuck do you care? Why does she have to say that? Why does she? I'm like, Jasmine, please. But Nia and Michelle, they go check on Danny. He's starting to wake up a little bit. But Jasmine's at the table, still worried about Nia, glossing over him being drunk. They're mad because she didn't want to say that he was drunk. If you know he's drunk, why the fuck she got to say it? We're going to get to it because Kristen clocked it. But Jasmine says, I'm sick of this bullshit. Sick of what? Sick of what? But she ends up saying Nia's giving all these pageant girl answers because she's Miss USA. And we all know what's happening. Why the fuck does it matter? But Luke ends up saying he's tired. Like, they got 3 kids. I'm like, hello? And, like, granted, he could be drunk. But that could be true, too. He could be tired. Like, we just found out. He just drove. He drove down the night before. Well, I don't know if he drove down. But regardless, he either drove or flew down, then drove back up here. Yeah, he just got drunk too. He's tired. It's going to wear off eventually. But Kristen ends up saying the same thing. Like, why does he have to be drunk? Because he's tired. And Jasmine ends up saying, I'm not saying that. Brittany ends up saying, this is where Brittany, I'm about to get her ass. I have to share everything I'm going through, but nobody else does. That's just funny to me. You don't have to share it. That's the point. You don't have to. And they don't have to. If they're going through personal shit, they ain't got to talk about it. That can stay within the house. Yeah, you're on a reality TV show, but if it's personal shit, they don't have to talk about the shit. They don't have to. If they don't want to, that's their business. Brittany's a fucking weirdo. But she then says, too, in her confessionals, that she's seen them not being genuine all day. She starts talking about how Nia was yelling at him on the bus, fighting in the Uber, and now they're at dinner I'm like, so you're talking about they weren't being genuine, but you watched them have all these conversations or have all these interactions between each other because they're in a marriage. They don't have to talk to you about that shit. They don't have to. You just wanted to be messy and you wanted to get their information so you can go talk about it. Like, come on. We know what you're doing. You're doing that because you're in a mess. Your life is a fucking mess. But Brittany ends up saying that they can be Mr. and Mrs. Perfect, but my relationship has to be out here in the open for everybody else to comment about. It's not fair. What? What? It's not fair? Keep your business out of public consumption. Like, get the fuck off the TV show then. If you don't want your business out there, get off the TV show. If you don't know how to keep your business in-house like they do, get off TV. Talking about it's not fair. Then get off the TV. But we know you won't because you won't have a job. You need some money. But Jasmine is telling Kristen, just say he's lit. Kristen says, I mean, if that's the truth, that's the truth. But they do have kids. Like, could he not be tired? I said, exactly, Kristen. And she says, maybe he's a little drunk, but who cares? Like, she said, like, but then she then too said, Kristen then said too in her confessionals, they waited till Nia got up to start speaking about this shit. I said, clock it, because they fake. You talking about you don't like all that fake shit, Jasmine, but you sitting here being fake. You didn't address this shit when you had the opportunity to with Nia. Granted, you have no business to address it, but you waited till she got up. Immediately waited for her to get up to then start talking. Fake. But Jasmine ends up saying that we all know this dark side of Danny. And she says everybody's calling bullshit on the naive Nia act and it's triggering her. Why do y'all care? But Nia, she ends up going, well, she's still over there helping Danny in bed. And Jasmine ends up saying downstairs to Kristen that if Danny is drunk and wants to take a nap, so be it. Exactly. So what are you mad about? I don't get it. But Kristen says everybody is drunk, so what is the deal? Exactly. But Zack ends up pulling Nia, and she's like, what's happening? Like, what, did I miss something? Yeah, you did. You got a bunch of fake-ass friends. And Zack is one of the real ones. Kristen and Luke are two of the real ones, because they weren't being fake around you, or being fake about you. But Zack ends up saying, yeah, I'm going to tell you, but I want to preface this. When you walked away, they said, can we just say, like, why is she sitting here glossing around the fact that he's drunk? Can we just say that he's drunk, passed out drunk? She says, yeah, obviously. Like, exactly. Like, duh, do I have to say it? Obviously. But Zack ends up saying, so you're not denying it? She says, yeah, like, duh. And he ends up saying several people were talking about how you're playing this perfect card about your relationship. And Nia asked if it was Janet. That's a good person to ask. That's the good first person to think would be the one to do it. But it wasn't her, actually. But Zack says all of them, Brittany the most, Brittany and Jasmine equally. He didn't say Jasmine as the most, but it's both of them. But he really put the emphasis on Brittany because of the shit that she did to him with Janet, which I'm not mad at him. He said, and that's what he said, like, Brittany and Jasmine are not saying shit to her face, and it's not cool, especially Brittany, considering that she did the same shit to him with Janet. But Nia ends up saying, so you're, just because your life is burning, my shit gotta burn too. And I'm like, exactly. They just want you to get down to their level. But Nia ends up saying that she's heated because why are they talking about her like that? And if they got something to say that shit to my face. Hello? I said, get him, Nia. But she goes off and Zack is walking behind her. Let's walk into my room. He's trying to like kind of ease her way in there. She ready to go over there and talk. But Nia ends up saying, I want to listen, because they get to the door and she starts eavesdropping. I said, good, Nia. See how fake they really are. And who's in there talking? Brittany. Jasmine is too. They in there talking cash shit. And Janet opens up the door. Nia and Zack come walking in as well. And Jasmine's in there talking shit. They walk in and Zack ends up trying to de-escalate the situation. And Brittany's sitting there with something. You couldn't talk about Danny being drunk? Nia says he is. Brittany says, but you couldn't say that earlier. Because why the fuck should she have to? Why? And Brittany then says, I'm just so upset because I'm going through so much. And you didn't have to get involved in that shit because you decided that you wanted to let that man procreate with you. You knew who Jax Taylor was before you met him because you probably was watching him on TV before you got on Vanderpump Rules. You brought this shit upon your damn self. Don't take that shit out on her because your life is fucked up because you decided to procreate with a man that don't like you, that throws tables at you, that hates you. Let's keep it real. He don't like you. He has a lot of other women that he prefers more than you, and you're mad about it. Don't be mad that Nia is okay with her relationship. Like, be for real. But Nia ends up saying, so you gonna attack me because you going through it. Brittany starts playing the victim, and I say, click, not paying attention to that. But that was the episode, y'all. I struggled through it because I was ready to light into Brittany. But the episode was a mess. But if you got this far and haven't already, thumbs up the video, share the video, drop a comment, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see y'all next Tuesday. Peace.